All right, so the last one, the overarching theme here is onboarding. Now, this is a topic that has been discussed on the podcast before, but there's always so much to say about onboarding. I collected a couple of stats to get us going. 39% of employees say they have not seen any onboarding program at their organization, according to a survey by Talmundo. Only 29% of employees say they feel fully prepared for their role and ready to excel after their onboarding, only 29%, and that's according to Gallup. And then last but definitely not least, 89% of new hires report feeling overwhelmed with information during the onboarding process. And that stat comes from Glean. Now, these are just a few examples of recent onboarding stats that don't necessarily paint a great picture of the state of onboarding in today's world of work. Sure, some, mostly large corporations, do a great job, but the vast majority of companies still have some work to do when it comes to their onboarding process. Now, let's zoom out for a second and take a totally different approach. Do we actually need an onboarding process in the way that we know it today? Wouldn't it be far more efficient to simply have an onboarding buddy, for example, for every new hire? Someone who does the same job or is part of the same team as them that can answer questions and guide them through their first weeks or months at the company, and let HR take care of the administrative and compliance side of things. Now, I'm super curious to hear what our guests have to say about this based on the following statement. If onboarding can't be done well, you shouldn't do it at all. All right. If onboarding can't be done well, you shouldn't be doing it at all. Ricardo, for this one, I'm going to start with you. Do you agree or disagree or something in between?
No, you absolutely need an onboarding program. And, even in that article's example, right, the idea of an onboarding buddy should be part of the onboarding program. It's just a subsection of it. But yeah, you absolutely need an onboarding program. I think oftentimes with companies that I've worked with, they just need somebody to come in and lead the development of that onboarding program. They need someone with fresh thinking to come in, reinvigorate it, spark some new tactics within the overall onboarding program to build it out. And it can definitely be done. In fact, I recently worked with a business where the chief technology officer came to me after he was onboarded. And he said that our onboarding program was better than that of American Express's at a fraction of the cost, because this business's revenue is 10% of what American Express's revenue is. Yet our onboarding program was far more impactful as a result of the thought and the just being detail oriented with how you kind of think through the development of the onboarding program. So it can definitely be done. You just need the right person to do it.
Okay, so I'm going to take that as I do not agree with the statement, obviously. Jessie, what do you say?
I have to agree with Ricardo. You absolutely need an onboarding program. Actually, I think it's probably one of the most important things that a business can have as a people product. Why? Because uncertainty breeds anxiety and fear. And if you don't know what you're supposed to do every day, you don't know the expectations, you don't know how you get paid or why you get paid, you don't know how to log in to the tools, you don't know what tools you're supposed to use, you don't know who your contact person is, you don't know how payroll slips come to you. Like, you're literally creating a fear and an anxious state in your workforce constantly, and you're breeding a whole bunch of people who don't know how to operate within your business. So you bring them in, you pay them a bunch of money, and be like, but we're not going to give you any guidance on how to operate here. So they're just like a wasted resource. It's ridiculous. It's the most important thing to do is bring people in. And this is why we have toxic work culture, because people aren't brought in and they don't get told this is how we do things here. This is the culture we have. These are the behaviors we expect. Here's how you can show them. Here's how you find, your pay slip. This is why we pay you the way we pay you. Here's how you get to the next level. Here's the organizational structure, and here's the people you should talk to. These are your buddy, whatever. None of that usually gets shared. A fraction of it, sometimes here or there. Or you do get an onboarding program, but it's overwhelming. Like, these statistics show that 89% of people are like, oh my God, I have so much information. Like, it's an overload. And I think that's because they're not designed by, firstly, the right people usually, or they don't have a lot of time, and it's not, basically the right person isn't doing it. The right competencies need to be there for that to be designed well. It's not just like, oh, it's an onboarding small admin task, let's just chuck it to the side and not worry about it. Like, it's a expensive strategic people product that if you get wrong will cost you a lot of money in productivity. If you get it right, will basically make your business flourish. There's like no buts about it. And every business that I've been in has done it pretty poorly, I would say. Like, I've had days where I like got no onboarding. Like, there's a couple of like calls and like group sessions where they do a slide presentation and that's it. And then you're like into it. Good luck. There's a Notion page with like, here are your goals for the first like month. You're like, awesome. Don't understand what that connects to. Why? Like, there's just really a lack of like priority given to this topic in business. And it's I feel like it's the secret sauce. It's like underdone in businesses everywhere. Could you imagine how much less toxicity, how much speed you would get if people just knew what they were doing? Less questions, less admin tickets, like so much less things. Managers would know what they're doing. They would know how to answer questions as well. Like, there would just be so much more focus on the business and doing the job instead of working out how to do the job. So I absolutely, don't agree with this statement that you don't need onboarding.
Now, something I'm curious about. So I hear from you already, Jessie, that you say that perhaps part of this, because if we look back at the stats that I shared with you in the intro, then I think it's quite shocking really to see how many people have not even experienced any kind of onboarding, and B, I think it was around 1/3 of people that said that after it they did not even remotely feel ready to excel at their jobs. Now, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on where do we think this comes from, this issue. So you, Jessie, mentioned, I think, lack of priority given to onboarding, but are there any other reasons for this that you may have come across? So Ricardo, I'm going to go back to you again first.
No, I agree with Jessie in the sense that the entire business needs to be in alignment with what the HR team is doing with respect to the onboarding program. So, if I go back to that example of the onboarding program I referenced, the reason why it works so well is that there isn't a conflict between, let's say, the operations side or the management team that is in charge of that new hire with the HR department and what they're trying to do for the onboarding program. So, because we already know, like, when you start a new job, it's incredibly overwhelming as is, just without anything, right? It's already overwhelming. They're already going to be in this kind of information overload because of so much new information that's getting thrown their way. But you have to take that into account. And when you're building the right onboarding program, and if, let's say, the HR team has built out this onboarding program, in collaboration with the management team that says, okay, on day 1, you're going to be doing this. Day 2, you're doing this. Day 3, you're doing this. There can't be some manager that comes in and says, no, you're not doing that. I need you for this important call on day 1 because I want to introduce you to so-and-so, and it has to be done. It just throws off the entire sequence. The HR team has to be empowered to say, no, this is what we agreed on. There's a reason behind this. There's a thought process as to why we said this is what a new hire is doing on day 1. This is what they do on day 2. If you want to do that meeting, schedule it on week 3 where we have room in the schedule, right? So that the person that's coming on board is able to go through this very methodical, guided process to get themselves up to speed so that they can be a value contributor by the time they come out of it. I think another key aspect to this is that beyond making sure that the entire management apparatus is in support of whatever onboarding program you put together, that there is somebody within the organization that's a champion for the onboarding program. Usually it falls on HR's plate, but ultimately you got to have somebody who is, championing the onboarding program, always looking to refine it, always looking to tweak it. How can we do it better? And the way that you do that is by talking to the people that are going through the onboarding program. All too often we'll go into a business and we'll see that they think that they have an onboarding program, and they have segments of it. And they'll say, well, we collect feedback by doing a survey. And what they do and what they mean is that they send out an electronic survey with 10 questions and asking the new hire, please fill it out. And you look at it from the employee's perspective, they're not going to want to fill it out. One, because if they say anything negative, it's going to be tracked back to them. They just started a new job. They're not going to put it on the line by making somebody look bad or complaining about a process. So they're not going to give you real feedback. And all too often, people don't even fill it out to begin with, right? And then the HR team says, well, nobody's filling out the survey. What do you want me to do? That's not the right approach. So really what you got to do is you got to have real conversations with people, take the time to sit with them and say, okay, look, what was your experience like? Talk me through it, right? And taking the time to really understand what their experience is, getting through all the details, hearing the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that then you can build on it and improve upon it over time so that you address whatever the shortcomings are of that onboarding program. And you also talk to the management team as well. Once somebody completes the onboarding program, what were they like? Did they do a good job? And then you can tie that into the performance management system. Is this somebody who excelled in the job after completing the onboarding program? Yes or no? You can track that with the stats from performance reviews and determine whether or not you're doing a good job and tie that all back into the beginning of their employment. Is there something that we could have done better? Did we not explain something enough? Did we not train them on this or that? When we're talking about goals, right? Instead of having a Notion template, did somebody sit down with them and explain what exactly are your goals? How are your individual goals connected to the department goals? How are the department goals connected to the overall business strategy? You got to have all these conversations. And I get why people don't do it. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. But if you're looking to build a strong onboarding program, that's what you got to do.
Yep. Thank you so much, Ricardo. Anything to add, Jessie?
I mean, lots to add. I mean, this topic is like, I love this topic because it's like the easiest way to get return, like for a business. Ricardo mentioned, that the leadership need to be bought into it. It needs to be co-designed. It needs to be something that everyone agrees to. And, I spoke earlier about it not being a priority in a lot of businesses. Who needs to champion the onboarding program? The CEO. The CEO isn't going to put that in all their executives' freaking performance reviews. Like, you better make sure that your teams and your output includes successfully attended and, worked through and proper structured onboarding programs. And you're out. Like, this is like such an expensive topic because we spend so much money on people. The whole recruitment process, the employer branding, the sourcing, the headhunting, the executive search, the everything that goes into it, the tooling we use to get the right people, the money we pay them is the biggest cost item for most businesses is people cost, because you expect a return in value of the output, but you're going to not give them the tools they need. You're not going to set them up for success. You're not going to teach them how to operate. You're not going to teach them how you would like them to operate in your business, because at the same time, you want to give them space to move, but you need boundaries as well in business. This is how we operate in this business. These are our values. We don't accept these things. As a leader, we expect you to champion the onboarding program. If you're not going to do that, that's a problem for us here. If these are not conversations that are had and these are not foundations that are shared, and then, you get down to, there's company things, there's team things, individual onboarding, there's so many layers to it. If this is not structured properly, there's not enough investment and not enough priority, you're putting money on the table, which is what all businesses are doing. And it doesn't just leave money on the table, it creates problems. Problems that amplify. Why do you think we have burnout everywhere? Why do you think we have managers who don't know what the F they are doing? Because they're not onboarded into their jobs. You change a job, it's like starting a new role in a business. Not onboarded. They're not trained. They don't know what they're doing. It's like, why are we doing this to people when we know it's so important for them to have guidance? We know it. I mean, it feels like there's something missing. Like, it should be so obvious, but it's not being prioritized at all. It's pushed away as like a small admin thing that gets done by the HR team, and it's like a day or a week maximum, maybe 2 weeks. If you're lucky, a couple of slides here and there. It's palmed off to one person, kind of manage and sort it out, and that's it. So I think there's a lot of problems there that need to be solved. I think they can be solved, but it comes with priority and investment and the importance and weighting that it should get. I absolutely agree with everything Ricardo said about onboarding as well, but I just think the conversation needs to change. And I think we're not designing the HR teams to actually be business functions. Like, people are like, oh, they need to talk the business language. And it's like, they are business functions. We're just not treating them like business functions. We're treating them like functions that don't matter, when actually 90% of what they do is critical for the business. So we should start treating the functions differently, and we need to be investing in them differently, talking about them differently, working together better. There's so much in this. Anyway, I get very passionate about it because I think it's such an unfair space, because always HR get blamed. you get managers being like, this is crap. I don't like this onboarding program, or I'm just going to skip it. It's fine, and the value is lost. So there's so much in this space. Everything we've talked about today, I just feel like we could talk for like 3 hours on each of it.
Yes. 100%. No, but particularly around onboarding, I think you both have such valid points here. And the thing is, I know that this has been said a lot, but it's really true. And indeed, it doesn't seem to be captured, I think, in its full importance yet. But when you do get the onboarding right, that potentially solves so many of the issues that so many companies are dealing with today. So yeah, this is I guess also why to me it's still I can't understand why we still haven't sorted this out, to be honest.
And one final thought I would say, just to kind of piggyback off of what Jessie was saying, is I would challenge any listener who's in charge of an onboarding aspect of their business to view the onboarding program not just as a one-day thing. Like oftentimes, I'll go into a business, we'll do an audit, and we'll talk to an HR professional, and I'll ask them what their onboarding program is, and they'll point to the day one orientation, like this meeting where HR sits down with a new hire and they go over like the handbook and payroll, and they'll say that this 1 hour meeting is orientation and that is the onboarding program. And that's the wrong way to view it. It's a very outdated way of viewing it. The onboarding program, in my mind, like when I talk about that company that the individual was saying was better than American Express's, it's a 6-month long program. It's not a one-day thing. It's certainly not a 1 hour meeting with HR. It's an entire experience that looks at how well the company has gotten the individual ready to do their job. There's a ramp up period, and how well they've integrated them into the culture. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but it's certainly not a 1 day thing or a 1 week thing or a 1 hour meeting. It's a 6-month program at least, if not longer.
Yep. And that was your final thought. I had a quick final thought. I agree with what Ricardo just said too, but I also think that one of the reasons onboarding programs aren't done, or they aren't designed in this kind of completeness, is because they actually don't have the foundation to share. Like, they don't know why we pay people the way we pay them. They don't know the leadership training program, because we don't have one. They don't know how you progress in the business and the career pathing systems. They don't have job levels, so they can't tell you what level you are. They don't have everything documented, so they can't refer to anything. And this is what happens when you, scale businesses too quickly and have a lot of HR debt. You don't have things in place. You can't share onboarding because you don't have it. So how do you onboard? Well, we kind of usually do it like this, or there's enough to do a 1 day or a 2 day thing, but that's about it. Very high level, So I think, a lot needs to happen in foundational work as well for onboarding to really make sense and be complete.
So yeah, we are basically at the end of the episode. Thank you both so much. One last question for each of you is, if there are people listening who want to connect with you, where can they best do so? Ricardo.
For me, you can find me with the handle Ricardo is HR on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way to find me, or just Ricardo Cuellar on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And Jessie?
You can find me on LinkedIn as well under Jessie Schofer, or you can also check out our Stakkd HR tech database at beta.stakkd.tech. And in there, you can click around and find all of our kind of free resources and blog. And also you can join up to newsletters, all sorts of stuff if you're interested to stay connected. But yeah, please do reach out.
Thank you so much. Yes, and to everybody listening, I highly recommend that you check out both of their LinkedIn accounts, because that's basically what I did as well. And there's a lot of interesting stuff there. So please do check it out and connect. That's it for me. Again, a really big thank you to both of you. Thank you, everybody, as well, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Yeah, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel, leave a review, as I asked at the start of the episode. It's really much appreciated. And then I would say see you soon for a new episode of HR Debatable. Thank you and goodbye.